Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Cut, Crop, and Die by Joanna Campbell Slan. Narrated by Amy Mcfadden. 1. All we're missing is a corpse. I hadn't realized I was thinking out loud until Mert Chambers, my best friend, stopped in her tracks. She turned and nearly crashed into me. We were both carrying heavy cardboard boxes of supplies, so our inept maneuver had a Keystone Cop clumsiness. "Why, Kiki Lowenstein, I can't believe you said that. I think all these flowers are beautiful," said Mert as we continued our trek down the short flight of stairs into a church basement. She smiled at the big pots of daylilies we'd purchased to give away as door prizes. "It's the smell," I explained. "When my eyes are closed, all I see are caskets and corpses. Plus, I haven't been in a church since my father died." The slightly dank basement brought back horrible memories. That said, I had to admit we'd been lucky Mert was able to find us a place so close to the Missouri Botanical Garden and willing to let us hold a crop, a scrapbooking event, in their basement for a small donation. Our boss, Dodie Goldfodder, wagged a finger at me. "Knock it off with the morbid talk. We can't risk customers hearing you. Move away from the microphone in case it's on." Dodie owns time in a bottle. At 6 feet tall, she towers over Mert and me and walks like that cartoon version of the abominable snowman. After shushing me, Dodie glanced pointedly over her shoulder. Women were filing in, towing their picnic coolers and cropper hoppers, rolling suitcases full of paper crafting materials. "The shuttle bus from the Botanical Garden has arrived," Dodie sang out with delight. "Ladies, did you enjoy your tours?" Women nodded and chattered happily. They staked out their places at long tables covered with white butcher paper to create a clean surface. Some opened their supplies and started to work on pages immediately. Others shared the photos they'd just taken by handing around their digital cameras. Many of our guests had never seen the Jenkins daylily garden in full flower. The women were chatting happily about the glorious sight of all 1,350 different varieties of hemerocallis, Greek for beauty for a day, spreading their luxe petals toward the sun. Our Missouri Botanical Garden, nicknamed Shaw's Garden, is considered one of the 3 great gardens of the world. This lovely space was once the personal refuge of Henry Shaw, the Englishman who, in 1859, opened his gardens to the public. It's the oldest continuously operating display conservatory in the United States. Part of my prep for this outing was spending an entire day roaming the grounds last week. I familiarized myself with what was blooming, taking photos to help me design page layouts, resulting in some of the best work I'd ever done. Given the beautiful photos we'd have to work with and my abundant preparation for this event, I should have been in a great mood. But I wasn't. Dodie pulled me aside and whispered, "This is a prime money-making event for us. Don't you dare spoil it. I've worked all year to be included in the Crop Around Missouri program. When these scrappers think special events, I want Time in a Bottle to be the first name that pops into their heads." I know. Sorry," I grumbled. I'd had a rough morning with my 12-year-old daughter. Lately, I couldn't do anything right for Anya. Her hormones must be going bonkers because my kid had become increasingly moody. I was trying to stay upbeat and focused, but geez, she was wearing me down. I was also sleep-deprived. Everyone associated with Time in a Bottle, Mert, Dodie, her new hire Bama, and I, had baked dozens of goodies for this gathering. My contribution was 3 dozen snickerdoodles. We'd all delivered our treats to Mert's house the night before. Because she's such an early riser, and because she had room in her truck, Mert had been tasked with bringing over our food, picking up more groceries, and with the help of her son Roger, setting up tables. All this was supposed to be done before our guests returned from touring the botanical garden. Scrapbookers are a hungry group, so Bama was in charge of the caterer. The food purveyors would bring us the more complicated menu items, such as breakfast sandwiches, quiches, and crepes. In an effort to be green, we'd arrange to rent glasses and plates, rather than produce more paper waste. Mert had seen Dodie corner me. She figured I'd been chastised. She came over and poked me in the arm. In a cheery voice, she preached, "You know, they call it the present because every day is a gift." "Thank you, Dr. Phyllis." She was right, but then, isn't she always? It's a quality both endearing and exasperating. Despite the hormonal harpy living in my house, life was good, and so was business. Since coming to work at the scrapbook store, I'd grown a small but dedicated following of customers. If things went well, this outing would bring more scrappers into the fold. My notepad listed the names of nearly 50 patrons, many new to our business. I'd designed papercraft kits, make-and-takes, for each of our guests to turn into dazzling pages. That's my job. I'm a professional scrapbooker. Ever since my husband George was killed last fall, my former hobby has supported me and my 11-year-old daughter, Anya. Although we don't live in the style to which we had been accustomed, we are getting by. Before my husband died, I used to be Dodie Goldfatter's best customer. Until recently, I was her best employee. That was another reason I felt grouchy. Dodie had gone and hired Bama Vess without consulting me. Okay, the store was a sole proprietorship, and Dodie was the owner, but it still rankled that I wasn't included in the decision-making. To add insult to injury, Bama simply did her work and went home. She rebuffed all my attempts to be friendly. That hurt. Thank goodness I had Mert in my life. Before my personal series of unfortunate events, Mert worked for me as my house cleaner. Now I work part-time in her dog-sitting business. I'm comfortable with the change of roles. Mert's a thick and thin friend, the type who stands by you no matter what. She's also one of the most industrious people I've ever met. Whenever Dodie needed extra help, like today, Mert was quick to volunteer. As my best friend flitted around, she garnered plenty of admiring glances. Mert's a firm believer in showing off the merchandise. Her halter top was a florid orange, with red, tangerine, and pink bangles around a neckline that displayed a gracious plenty of cleavage. Her skin-tight capri pants were of a matching colorful print. By contrast, I wore a pair of khaki slacks from Target with a cream-colored short-sleeved blouse I'd rescued from Goodwill. I looked okay, but a safe okay. 2 blocks this side of drab. Not that my employer notices or cares. From behind, it's tough to tell whether Dodie is animal, vegetable, or mineral. She's hairy, lumpy, and shaped like a rock formation. But she's also a great person to work for, and despite her terse manner, she's a sweetheart. Dodie asked, "Where's Bama?" I shrugged. Scrapbookers were still arriving from the botanical gardens. In small groups, they came flooding in and setting up their personal cropping supplies. Mert flittered from table to table, unpacking and putting out the food she'd been tasked with delivering. Bama was supposed to be here too, leaving Dodie and me free to concentrate on paper, supplies, and tools. "Have you seen Bama?" Dodie asked Mert. "Nope," she said. Bama's absence suited me down to the ground. "Shoot," Mert had said when we had talked the day before. "You're jealous of that girl. You liked being the one and only star at the store. You got your panties in a wad because you have to share the limelight." "Not so. I'm being protective of my employer. There's something not right about that woman. Bama never looks me in the eye. I swear, what is she hiding? And she weaves like a drunk." That was my public complaint. My private complaint was more along the lines of what Mert had guessed. I was jealous, and I felt intimidated by Bama's education. Dodie had hinted that Bama had an MFA, a Master's of Fine Arts. I had bupkis. Everything I'd learned about scrapbooking came from trial and error, studying magazines, and educating myself about products and techniques. Seemed to me, in a twisted sort of way, Bama earned her stripes too easily. Even so, I knew I wasn't being fair. I admit it, I'm insecure. I was scared I'd lose my job. I've only ever been good at two things in life, scrapbooking and getting pregnant. For the first time in my 33 years, I was gainfully employed, responsible for my own welfare, and getting compliments. If I was overly protective of my new life, I had reason to be. I climbed on a chair and did a quick scan of the room. Bama was nowhere to be found. Dodie, I don't see Bama anywhere. I tried to sound disappointed.
You have to be kidding me. I told her to be here no later than 10. The tours of the botanical garden are over. Our guests who drove themselves are already arriving. The last shuttle bus will be due any minute. These women are going to want to eat quickly and start on our special projects.
She was right. Our customers eyed the food on the serving tables. They were being polite, waiting for us to give them the go-ahead, but we needed to get this show on the road. We'd made a big deal about offering a catered hot brunch. Our guests would not be happy if we didn't live up to our promise. A low grumble of discontent was already starting among the women.
Set up warming trays along the far table.
In dramatic fashion, Bama burst into the room, waving a chart at workers who followed. A phalanx of young people with polo shirts bearing the name The Catering Company filed in, carrying oversized metal pans. Our final shuttle bus must have arrived at the same time as the caterers, because a handful of our guests had been pressed into service. Scrapbookers were balancing aluminum tins of food on the tops of their cropper hoppers. Several carried thermal containers marked with the catering company's logo.
Put the hot food there, there, and there.
All eyes turned to Bama. Today she was wearing pencil-thin black jeans scrunched over the top of pointy-toed boots. A sparkling brooch of jet-black beads gathered the simple neckline on her t-shirt into an asymmetrical shape, forming a sort of jaunty, impromptu V-neck. She couldn't have projected an artistic image better if she'd slapped a black beret on the crown of her head and spoken with a French accent. The noise and activity level rose, along with the sensuous aroma of bacon and cheese. The caterers finished lighting the sterno and headed out of the building. Bama fussed over the food placement, but as she did, she steadied herself by keeping one hand on the edge of the tables or against the wall. What was it? Drugs? Booze? A part of me was dying to know, while another part was ashamed of my mean-spiritedness. The guests were taking their seats and marking their territory. Dodie gave me a nod, the signal we were almost ready to begin. I felt a rush of happy excitement. My efforts were about to pay off. The page kits I'd created for this outing represented my best efforts. Dodie had lobbied hard for membership in the Crop Around Missouri program, CAMP, a coalition of area independent retailers. Since independents don't have the buying power or ad budget of big chains, we have to find other ways to keep our customers happy. The store owners created CAMP to pool their resources, making all of them stronger retailers and sharing the cost of promotion. They had also put aside their differences. All of them, that is, except Ellen Harmon, owner of Memories First. Ellen seemed determined to cause dissension and trouble. Worse yet, Dodie and I had noticed whatever classes we offered, Ellen copied immediately, at a lower price. But Ellen could not possibly beat us when it came to original ideas. That was my area of specialty. I smiled inwardly and outwardly as I moved to the rolling cart where I'd organized our supplies. My back was to the front of the room when Ellen Harmon called out, "Welcome, everyone! Let me talk, then you can eat." Dodie and I exchanged shocked glances. Ellen Harmon had commandeered the microphone at the front of the room. This was our crop. It was customary for the hosting store to start the festivities. Ellen had just robbed Dodie of the privilege of greeting the crowd. 2. Everyone's eyes were on Ellen. She'd dressed for the occasion in a bold pink and black tunic top decorated with butterflies outlined in silver sequins. In her jet black hair, she wore a sparkling butterfly pin. All these shiny surfaces caught the light as she announced, "As all of you know, the most prestigious contest in scrapbooking is the Scrapbook Stars competition held by Saving Memories magazine. Thousands of scrapbookers enter each year." Ellen paused to give her words full effect. "We are delighted to announce that one of our Memories First design team members has been named a Scrapbook Star. Let's hear it for Yvonne Gaynor." A cheer erupted from the crowd. Yvonne stood and waved to acknowledge the applause. Ellen hadn't finished. "Yvonne's winning pages are on the magazine website. She'll be teaching classes exclusively at my store, Memories First. You'll want to sign up lickety-split. Space in her classes will be available on a first-come, first-served basis. I am sure that all of you are going to love what she has to share." Ellen paused, turned, and stared directly at me. "Yvonne is a unique talent in an industry full of copycats." My face turned hot with embarrassment. That was rich. Calling me a copycat? What colossal nerve! "Shake it off," I warned myself. "You don't want these women to know how upset you are." "Now, we have lots of yummy food," said Ellen as she gestured at the serving tables. "Yvonne, why don't you lead the way to our brunch?" I stood there, feeling like the uninvited kid who's resigned to sneaking peeks through a window at a popular girl's birthday party. We'd organized this whole event. And for what? For Ellen Harmon to take over? For her to call me a copycat and slip in an advertisement for her store? None of us had tried to stop Ellen. How could we? Anything we'd say would make us come off like poor sports. Bama, Mert, and I stood in a gaggle at the back of the room. We were all kinds of speechless and totally dismayed. Fortunately, Dottie knew how to handle this. Our boss strode up to the microphone where she tapped a spoon against a glass and shushed the crowd.
"All of us at Time in a Bottle want to add our congratulations. Let's hear it for Yvonne. Hip, hip, hooray!"
Mert and I followed her lead, raising our hands high and cheering. Bama hesitated before chiming in, plastering a painful grin on her face. Ellen's expression turned sour as she looked over from her place in the food line. She knew exactly what we were doing. When giving credit, the rule is the person giving credit has more stature than the person receiving. Time in a Bottle had once again regained the high ground.
"Please, help yourself to the food."
Dodie smiled as the women all scurried to get in line.
"Go ahead and make 2 lines. There are plenty of utensils. Eat up. I don't want anyone to go home hungry. Kiki Lowenstein will pass out your supplies and explain our first project while you're eating."
"Nice save," I muttered to my boss as women streamed past us with plates in hand. Following Ellen's suggestion, Yvonne had taken her place at the head of the line. She would have been a terrific plus-size model. She had gorgeous blonde hair and a classy but fashion-forward style in her clothes. Today she wore a huge statement necklace of gold links that contrasted nicely with her simple cobalt blue tunic top. Her skinny jeans were tucked into a pair of adorable short cowboy boots in various shades of blue. Her best pals, Nettie Classer and Raina Rimmel, took their places behind her. Nettie was tall and large-boned, with an awkward way about her, and her clothes always looked as if she'd slept in them. Raina wore her hair in various shades of red, colors that changed from month to month. She was the smallest of the three and dressed nicely, but her choices could best be labeled forgettable. As Yvonne walked by me to get to her seat, I noticed she'd overloaded her plate with food. She wouldn't possibly be able to eat all that. Most of it would go to waste. Dodie noticed the gluttony, too. She whispered in my ear,
"I don't care what contest she won. I'm glad I fired Yvonne as a customer."
Shortly after I had joined Dodie at Time in a Bottle, my boss had told me,
"I've banned Yvonne from the store. She's no longer welcome to shop here. That woman costs me money, and she runs off other customers, too. I hope we won't lose her friends as customers, but I have to draw a line somewhere."
I was alone in the store on the day when Yvonne's friends stopped by to make it clear they didn't intend to boycott Time in a Bottle.
"Hey, we know Yvonne's faults," said Raina as she signed up for a crop. "We're her friends, but we aren't clueless."
Nettie agreed.
"That's right. She could be downright mean."
I wondered how Yvonne would treat her old pals now that she'd become a celebrity. Dodie came up behind me and whispered,
"Give them 5 minutes before you start. This might be a good time to go and make nice to Yvonne."
"Gotcha." Walking over to the scrapbook star's table, I managed a warm smile. "Yvonne, that's great news about the contest. Congratulations." She barely nodded to me, and she didn't stop eating. Clearly, she found me an annoyance. I was determined to be gracious. "Did you all drive over together?" The women nodded. "How fun." "Raina, what's that I see? Is it the new stapler you can use anywhere on your page?" "I've been meaning to try that." I lied. I'd been using one for ages, but Raina preened after being acknowledged. "Hey, Nettie, good to see you. What are you working on today?" Nettie didn't like to create pages in front of other scrapbookers. She'd participate in the projects I planned, but she liked to do her own original work in private.
"Today I'm sorting photos."
Nettie removed her white cotton gloves so she could blow her nose. Dedicated hobbyists wear white cotton gloves to protect the surfaces of our photos from oil and dirt on our skin. Nettie sniffled and reached for a Mountain Dew.
"Sorry, with all the rain we've had, the mold count is unbelievable."
"Are you finished, Raina? Let me take that empty plate so you can go back for more food." I was going to be helpful if it killed me.
"Me too,"
Nettie said as she handed me her plate. I balanced the dirty dishes and said, "Yvonne?" But Yvonne was still cramming her mouth. She spread a hand over her orange scone to warn me away from her food. "No problem. I'll catch you later," I said. I deposited the 2 plates in the dirty dish cart and heard a crash, the sound of glass hitting the floor. I whirled around. Yvonne had knocked over a glass of cola. Her hands moved across the table, searching blindly. Instead of mopping it up with her napkin, she pushed aside her plate. Next, she knocked her eating utensils to the floor. "What on earth?" "Help!" yelled Raina, leaning nearer to her friend's face. "Something's wrong!" I ran to the table where the trio was sitting. Yvonne turned wild eyes on me. A wheezing sound rumbled deep inside her. "Call 911, I yelled to Dodie. "Are you choking?" I asked Yvonne.
"Slap her back,"
said Nettie. Before I could do that, Nettie gave her pal a hearty blow to the midsection. Yvonne thumped the table with her fists. She struggled to say,
"Urs! Urs!"
Nettie offered her friend a glass of water Yvonne knocked from her hand. The liquid flew all over us and the floor. "Here!" Raina handed her friend the purse, and Yvonne dumped all contents of her handbag onto the table. Her fingers raced through the mess, discarding this and that. Tissues, lipstick, wallet, cell phone, pencil, notebook, checkbook, all went flying. Time seemed to slow down. Yvonne seized a yellow box. Her skin was a dusky shade. Her lips were trembling. She unscrewed a cap. A tube fell apart in her hands, exposing a syringe. Holding the implement like a hammer, she swung her arm wide and jabbed the needle through her slacks into her leg. Her eyes were wide with fright. Her body bucked in the chair. She beat her fists against her thighs. The syringe dropped from her hand and rolled across the floor as Yvonne slumped to one side. She slid toward the floor. Her friends and I grabbed at her, trying to soften her impact. As we held on to her, Yvonne wheezed, bucked, and wheezed some more. I tried to keep her head up in the hopes it would help her breathe. She was heavy, and our grip wasn't secure, so we laid her out on the tile. Someone handed us a sweater. I rolled it up and slipped it under Yvonne's head. Her lips had turned blue. I was afraid to look away in case I could help, and terrified to keep watching because I knew I couldn't. It seemed as though it took forever for the emergency medical service crew to arrive, but it must have been only minutes. The medics pushed me aside, stepping forward to work on Yvonne, asking questions, examining the silver medical alert bracelet on her wrist, checking her vitals, and moving in a synchronized blur. I backed away from the furious activity, shaking my head in horror. Mert took me by the arm. "This don't look good." "Yeah," I said. "You've got that right." 3. "What on earth happened at your crop?" asked Sheila Lowenstein, the mother of my late husband, George. Dressed in tailored pants and a white sleeveless silk blouse, my mother-in-law knelt on a foam pad in the middle of her lawn, a box of mothballs within easy reach, and a trowel in her hand. "I'm sick of these moles making a mess of my yard." My daughter was nowhere in sight. Anya probably didn't appreciate her grandmother's efforts to scare off the intruders taking over her pristine lawn. My kid was a budding animal rights activist. She was rooting for the critters. "It's been all over the news," Sheila continued. "There couldn't possibly have been 2 large scrapbook meetings in a neighborhood adjacent to the botanical garden." On my drive to Sheila's house, I'd punched one button after another, searching for a station that wasn't buzzing with reports of a woman dying at a scrapbook event. I finally gave up and turned off the car radio rather than listen to more speculation about Yvonne Gaynor. Our guest went into allergic shock, anaphylaxis. It happened so quickly. I watched Sheila jabbing her trowel into a clump of grass. "Can I help?" My mother-in-law bashed the green leaves with her tool. "Drat, drat, and double drat! I hate these moles. Mr. Sanchez would know what to do, but he's in Mexico for his granddaughter's quinceañera." Sounded like Mr. Sanchez had plotted a great escape. I wasn't at all surprised. Sheila could be notoriously hard to please. I retrieved a screwdriver from my car, used a stack of old newspapers headed for the recycling as a kneeling pad, and knelt down beside her. My tool formed a hole in the soil. I shoved mothballs down the dirt tube. Finally, I pressed the parted grass together to lock in the aromatic critter chaser. "That's right. Mothballs every foot or so ought to stink these nasty varmints out of house and home." Sheila paused to wipe her brow with an embroidered linen handkerchief. "That woman didn't have one of those pens with her, the kind where you give yourself a shot? If she didn't, she was a fool." "She did, but it was empty." I turned my face to hide any wry twist of my mouth. Good old Sheila. She certainly didn't bother to censor herself or think twice about sounding cruel. Despite the color all around us, or perhaps to counterbalance it, Sheila's world was black and white. Fortunately, these days I was on her good side. I'd been on the other end of her sliding scale, and believe me, it wasn't much fun.
How stupid. People with severe allergies generally know what to avoid. For an anaphylactic reaction to occur, you must have been exposed in the past to the substance that caused...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?